I want to tell you about a throw. Not because it was spectacular, not because it resulted in a touchdown or a big gain or the kind of moment that ends up in a highlight package. I want to tell you about it because of what it revealed in real time, in front of a coaching staff holding clipboards and forming opinions that are going to shape this franchise for the next several years. Dillon Gabriel drops back. The pre-snap motion is correct. The footwork in the pocket is structured. Everything on the surface looks like a quarterback executing a designed play with competent fundamentals. And then he pulls the trigger, and the ball leaves his hand, and something happens that you cannot fake your way past at the NFL level. The velocity dies. The throw floats toward the receiver without authority, without conviction, without the zip that tells everyone watching whether the quarterback truly trusted the window he was attacking. The ball arrives softly, tentatively, and a defender reaches up and takes it like it was left there for him. Clean, effortless, final. That throw is not a bad day. That throw is information. And at Brown's minicamp, the coaching staff under Todd Monken collected a great deal of very specific, very uncomfortable information about exactly what Dillon Gabriel is right now as a professional quarterback. Let me take you through the full picture of that minicamp session, because the context surrounding individual moments matters as much as the moments themselves. The practice structure communicated something before a single competitive rep was thrown. Shedeur Sanders was running with the first-team offense. Gabriel was working with the second unit, waiting for his opportunity with the twos. I want to be clear about what that distribution actually represents, because there is a temptation to treat it as a neutral, administrative decision about managing reps across a roster. It is not that. Under Todd Monken's operation, how practice reps are distributed is how the coaching staff communicates its current evaluation of the players competing for positions. Kevin Stefanski managed that communication differently. Monken does not manage it at all. He simply reflects what the evaluation has produced in the structure of how the practice day is organized. And the structure of that practice day placed Gabriel with the second team before competitive periods had even begun, which means the coaching staff had already formed an assessment significant enough to express through that structural decision. When Gabriel finally got his 7-on-7 reps, the numbers told a story that I do not think even the most generous interpretation can soften into something acceptable. 3 completions, 6 attempts, 2 interceptions in 7-on-7. I need to make sure you understand what that environment actually is, because the context of where those numbers were produced matters enormously in evaluating what they mean. 7-on-7 is one of the most forgiving competitive situations a quarterback encounters in a practice setting. There is no pass rush, no defensive lineman timing up a speed move off the edge and arriving in the pocket before the route has reached its break point. The windows are cleaner than they will be in any regular season game. The reads are simplified by the absence of the most disruptive variable in football, which is pass rush pressure collapsing the pocket and compressing the decision window into something almost inhuman. This setting was designed structurally to give quarterbacks the best possible conditions to execute, and in those conditions, Gabriel completed half his throws and surrendered 2 free possessions to the defense. That is not a player having a difficult day in a challenging environment. That is a player revealing the distance between where he currently operates and where this job actually requires him to be. But the numbers are not even the most revealing part of what I watched from Gabriel at minicamp. And this is the detail I want you to sit with carefully, because I think it gets compressed or passed over in most coverage of what happened. The bad plays did not happen because the mechanics were visibly broken. They did not happen because Gabriel was flinching at imaginary pressure or making obvious pre-snap errors. He went through his full pre-snap routine on the reps that ended badly. Man in motion, eyes moving across the coverage. The structural components of a quarterback executing a designed play were all present and visible from the outside. And then when the moment arrived to actually deliver the football, everything that looked correct on the surface produced something that was not correct at all. The ball came out without authority. It arrived at its target without the kind of velocity that makes defensive backs respect the window and stay in their coverage rather than attacking the ball in flight. The arm and the mind were running 2 separate programs, and the separation between what the preparation looked like and what the execution produced is the specific gap that reveals something deeper than mechanics. You can fix mechanics between minicamp and training camp. You cannot fix competitive readiness on a similar timeline. You cannot manufacture the internal certainty required to attack a tight window aggressively when the situation is real and the consequences are real and the coaching staff is watching and forming assessments about your future in this building. Gabriel's mechanics told one story. His throws told the truth. The 11-on-11 period is where I want to spend the most time because I think it is the moment that carries the most weight coming out of that minicamp day and will carry the most weight in how this competition is remembered when it reaches its conclusion. 11-on-11 is where quarterback evaluation becomes fully real, full defense operating at game speed, route concepts developing against actual coverage shells, reads that require genuine processing rather than simplified decisions in a sanitized environment. This was Gabriel's moment to push back against the story that 7-on-7 had already started writing about him. He had a complete offense around him. He had receivers running legitimate routes against real coverage. He had everything a quarterback needs to make one convincing throw, one moment to point at and say, "That is me. That is what I bring to this competition. And anyone who doubts I belong here should think about that throw." Instead, he finished his 11-on-11 session by throwing an interception to a player on a tryout. Not a proven veteran cornerback with years of experience reading quarterback tendencies and exploiting leverage in coverage. Not a starter who had earned his position through sustained competitive performance. A tryout player, someone who drove to that facility carrying a dream and a very small statistical probability of leaving with a contract, and who Gabriel gifted with the most meaningful career moment he had yet produced in a professional setting. I have watched enough competitive football to know the specific category of moment that this represents. Bad days happen to every quarterback. Individual struggles across a single practice session get absorbed into the larger sample of an extended evaluation process and eventually become minor footnotes. But there are certain moments that do not wash off in the same way. Moments that happen in front of an entire coaching staff evaluating with specific professional intent. Moments that arrive at a specific juncture in a competition when the stakes of every rep are fully understood by everyone present. And moments that carry a symbolic weight that transcends the individual play because of what they communicate about the player producing them. Getting intercepted by a tryout player on your final 11-on-11 throw of the day at Minicamp while competing against a 5th overall pick for the starting quarterback job is that kind of moment. Todd Monken remembers that moment. The offensive staff references that moment. It sits in the accumulated evaluation file alongside every other piece of information that practice day produced, and it does not sit quietly. What makes the contrast of that moment so striking is that it existed simultaneously with what was happening on the other end of the practice facility. While Gabriel was floating throws into coverage and handing his final rep to a player who had not yet secured a roster spot, Shedeur Sanders was running the first-team offense with a quality of settled, purposeful authority that is one of the most difficult things to develop in a quarterback at any level. There was no hesitation in his pre-snap processing, no urgency that crossed the line into panic after the snap. Just a quarterback who has fully internalized a system working through it with the timing and the placement and the decisive delivery that tells everyone watching, including the coaches holding those clipboards, that the system lives inside him rather than sitting in a playbook he is still consulting. The contrast between those two images, one quarterback operating from genuine internalized command and another quarterback floating throws into coverage and getting intercepted by someone fighting for a practice squad opportunity, was not subtle. It was visible and complete and available to every set of evaluative eyes present in that facility on that afternoon. Nobody who watched both of those quarterbacks in the same session walked away genuinely confused about what the evidence was showing them. Then the microphones came out, and what happened in the post-practice press conference exchanges added a layer to everything the practice field had already communicated that I find genuinely difficult to set aside. Gabriel was asked about his offseason, a routine question, an open door for any quarterback in a competition to at least project professional urgency and seriousness about the opportunity in front of him, to reference the film work, the mechanical focus, the system study, the specific areas of development he attacked during the months between seasons. His answer was that he was around. He was places. That was essentially the substance of what he offered. No specificity, no reference to what he worked on or why. No indication that the offseason was spent attacking anything with the kind of focused intentionality that a quarterback competition for an NFL starting job demands from the players involved in it. He answered a question about preparation with the vague geographical information that he existed somewhere during the relevant months and hoped that was enough to satisfy the inquiry. I need you to understand the full weight of that answer in its specific context. This was a man who had just completed one of the worst individual practice sessions of his professional career, who had just thrown 2 interceptions in 7-on-7 and gotten picked by a tryout player in 11-on-11, who was standing in front of cameras with the full knowledge that the coaching staff he was now working under had watched all of it with complete evaluative attention, and the natural opportunity to at least communicate that the work behind the performance existed even if the performance itself had not reflected it was there, waiting. In a softball question about how he spent his offseason, he had nothing specific to say about it. Not because he was protecting proprietary information, because there was nothing specific to protect. The preparation that would have produced specific memories, the kind of memories that a player can access instantly because the difficulty of building something new leaves clear and recent impressions, was either absent or insufficient, and the answer he gave reflected exactly that reality. Shedeur Sanders fielded a similar question, and the difference in the two responses was not a matter of communication style or media savvy. It was a difference in the substance available to be communicated. Shedeur was specific specific about what he prioritized, what he attacked, what he knows about himself as a preparation process at this stage of his development. He answered like a player who did something real with his time and could recall it with precision because the work was recent and genuine and left the kind of specific impressions that real work always leaves. One player knew exactly what he had built. The other was hoping the question would not push far enough to reveal what had not been built at all. The playbook question made it worse, and I want to address it directly because it strips away any remaining ambiguity about where Gabriel's command of this system currently sits. He was asked what felt different about Monken's offense, what challenged him, what excited him about the new concepts he was learning. His response was a structured collection of words that contained no actual information, similarities between concepts, different ways of progressing through reads, looking forward to continued learning. Day 1. These are the verbal patterns a quarterback uses when he does not know a system well enough to say anything genuinely specific about it. A player who has spent real time inside a new offensive structure over an off-season can tell you precisely what surprised him, what felt familiar, what demanded the most mental energy to internalize, because the process of mastering something difficult leaves specific impressions that do not fade quickly. Gabriel had none of that texture in his answers because the work that would have produced it was not present in the way this competition demanded it be. There is one more dimension of this situation that I think deserves honest examination because it connects what happened at Minicamp to everything that preceded it during the previous season. Gabriel did not arrive at this competition on neutral terms. He operated throughout last season in an organizational environment under Kevin Stefanski that structured its quarterback competition in ways that did not reflect a pure merit-based evaluation. Shedeur Sanders received no first-team repetitions in training camp. 0. The foundational work that any quarterback needs to build chemistry with his receivers and establish command of his coordinator system was systematically withheld from a 5th overall pick while his competitor collected the developmental benefits of a first-team workload. Gabriel did not design that environment, but he moved through it as a quiet beneficiary, collected every advantage it produced for his position in the competition, and never once stood in front of a camera and said what anyone watching with honest eyes could see clearly, that the process was not built on equal terms. He accepted the benefits of the imbalance without acknowledging it. That is not a character indictment. It is a factual description of a choice made across an entire season. Stefanski is gone. The environment he created is gone. Monken does not manage quarterback competitions through organizational politics. He manages them through practice structure and film evaluation and the accumulated weight of what players show him across every available rep. And what that structure produced at Minicamp, when the organizational machinery that previously kept Gabriel relevant in the conversation was no longer operating, was a completely unfiltered picture of where both quarterbacks actually are right now as football players. Shedeur running the ones with command and authority and settled professionalism. Gabriel floating throws with the second team and getting intercepted by a player still hoping to earn a roster spot. That picture is not complicated. It does not require sophisticated analytical interpretation. It simply requires honest observation of what happened when the evaluation conditions were finally level. Gabriel had the opportunity at this minicamp to make this competition genuinely interesting. He had the reps, he had the setting, he had the post-practice press conference time to at least demonstrate that the professional urgency required to compete for this job was present even if the practice performance had not reflected it. He used none of those opportunities effectively. And Shedeur Sanders, commanding an offense from the first team position with the kind of settled authority that only comes from genuine preparation meeting genuine ability in a competitive environment, did not need Gabriel to fail in order to establish his case. He built it independently, through his own work, through the consistency and the command that his preparation had produced. The competition has a direction, and that direction was visible in every rep, every throw, every post-practice answer, and every coaching decision about which quarterback lines up with which group. The only remaining question is how long the formal process continues before the conclusion that the practice field has already delivered gets officially confirmed.